So just got done with a really interesting interview with Rachel Wixey with the Wixey Wellness Center. I got to tell you, I was blown away because as somebody who has meditated for like over 15 years now, I only thought of it in one dimension. And now to have someone locally who I've been good friends with for a long time explain to me all the different ways that meditation fits, all the people it can work for, just all the goodness. Like there's literally so many good things that have to do with meditation. And for those of us that have studied it at all, it's so good for people. And reaching out to the young people sooner and giving them this skill and this tool, it's going to be awesome. This is a really good one, guys. Please tune in. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't. Share this with your friends, all those good things. Much love. Thanks a lot.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome to the Dan DeVerna Podcast, where we talk about business, life, and how to win at both.
Let's just get talking about what we're here to talk about, which I think really is your new adventure, let's call it, because I think this is something that, unless I'm mistaken, like Toledo has been missing forever. And I'm here with Rachel Wixey, and we're going to be spending a little bit of time kind of just going back and forth about some of the cool things that she's done in her past and is doing now. And now what I think is so cool about it is giving it to all of us, because I've always known about meditation since martial arts. Like martial arts was my formal introduction to meditation, but now you are coming through this like whole different door. Like, I don't know if it's kind of the front door of the path for the Wixey Center for Wellness. And can you just tell us a little bit about the center eventually, but tell us about how in the world you get such a bold idea to create in Toledo, because Toledo's not early adopters on things. So I'd love to hear kind of how this all evolved. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot packed in that. So if you're willing, I think what I'm feeling like right now is, could I do just like a check-in? And a check-in for me is actually, it's a meditative or a mindfulness experience, and it's to be able to go in and notice what I have going on, name it, and sometimes that helps diffuse some nervous energy.
Yeah.
I have it. I'm not a video person in general, so what I know right now is that like my breathing stopped for a couple seconds, and it shouldn't. So I want to regain my breath. I want to feel my feet on the ground. I know my heart is racing. I thought we were all audio today, and then it was video.
I curveballed you.
Yeah, tell me that morning of, and that's so fun. It's so fun, and I'm also all about saying yes. So I think this is really cool that you're willing to take some time in your space to talk about this. And you said some fun things. I love the front door. Like taking us through the front door for this. And I think the best place for me to start, based on some of the things that you just said, would be. You said Toledo's not really early on some of these things, and we're not. Mm-hmm. And my story actually will kind of touch on that just a little bit. So I'll start maybe somewhere around 2008. And in 2008, I was working in a family business. Mm-hmm. And I think everything from the outside looking in, maybe at me and my life, looked pretty good. Probably looked decent. I had a good job, family business, and everybody's into family business, so it was people enjoyed that. I had a husband and 2 kids, so raising a young family. I still have a husband and 2 kids, but everything from the outside looking in probably looked really good. Everything on the inside was completely different than that. So I had at the time a lot of, if I were just to kind of name themes. I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of resentment. I had a lot of judgment. I should probably start with that. Maybe judgment is so much a part of, I think, what we can tend with in the world once you start a practice, like noticing judgment is such a big piece of a meditation practice in general. And what I knew was there had to be another way. There had to be another way of being with the world. There had to be another way of being with my experiences, my relationship to myself, and my relationship to other people. And so I started looking, seeking, reading, seeking. I'm a big reader, and I think we're all seekers in general.
Yeah.
I think that there's always that part within us that knows how we're intended to live, and anytime we're too far off from that place, there's something about that makes us go looking. Mm-hmm. And we look in a variety of different ways, right?
Yeah.
So it was through that seeking that I came to a body of work that I didn't know it at the time. It didn't explicitly say, we're going to start you on a meditation practice. Mm-hmm. But it was a daily practice. It was reading a body of work, and I would read one lesson a day. And then at the end of the short lesson, short being anywhere from 3 lines to 3 pages, it would then say, now let your eyes close and do this. Mm-hmm. And so really, Dan, it was a contemplative practice that I was starting, but I didn't really realize maybe until a few months into it, when I was setting the alarm for 5 a.m. so that I could carve out that protected time. Mm-hmm. My children were still very young, and that I could have that time and that space for myself. And eventually I realized that it was a contemplative meditation practice. Even though it didn't name that, I knew that's what I was getting into. And, 5 minutes turned into 15 minutes, turned into 45 minutes. And now, a morning practice can be anywhere from, like we talked about earlier, 5 minutes to an hour and 5 minutes, just depending on how much time you can allow yourself and how much you want to drop into that practice at any given time. And I don't know at what point, it was probably maybe, within the following year or so, that I was able to make the direct correlation between my meditation practice and every area and every relationship in my life improving, like all of it.
Wow.
And I kind of I went through this whole, and I still get a little bit of, I went through this whole range of emotions about it, because I thought, why the hell didn't they give us this in school? Mm-hmm. They focus so much on some of this, the things that we focus on in school, and I'm not saying don't focus on those things, but you can't include some basic awareness practice. You can't include how to self-regulate your body and your emotions on purpose when I'm 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Right.
And I'm sitting here at the time, I don't know how, I'll date myself. How old was I in 09, 10? We're close to the same age. So
we're young.
Too damn old. I was too old to be just getting this. So I spent a little bit of time kind of angry about it. Like, what the heck is this? So I started poking around, and I thought, well, maybe there are places that do teach this in schools. And I just live in maybe an area that's taking
not an early adopting area. Right.
An area that's taking a while to catch up. And in looking, I did find that there's an organization called Mindful Schools that teaches teachers to provide mindfulness curriculum to K-12 youth.
Okay.
Cool, right?
Very cool.
Super cool.
Great.
And I kind of just really watched them from the fringe for a while. Like, I wanted to pay attention, know what they were about, wanted to know if they're, what I was seeing, reading, hearing, learning from them resonated with what was true for me. Mm-hmm. And over time, I found that every bit of it was, and then some. And so eventually I actually started taking what their prerequisite courses were for being able to take a year-long certification program. And that year-long certification program I ended up taking, and it was to be able to teach K-12 youth mindfulness curriculum as an outside provider. I'm not an educator by, training. Mm-hmm. I went to school and I studied English. I'm a writer, that's what my love is, reading, writing, but not a teacher. And so I did this, and through that work, I found that, well, here's what I think. I think kids are cool and adults are the messy ones.
Yeah.
So I love working with adults. And somewhere in that story, let's see, I ended up leaving that position, that family business that I was in. And I formed my own business in May of 2010. And that business was educational staffing. You're familiar with that business?
I am.
And it was, throughout my work in that industry that I was working with a lot of different public pre-K through 12 schools. and then of course my own staff. So I had an internal staff of about 30. I had people working in the field, maybe about 3,000 people that could be in schools at any given day. And I started actually holding open sit meditations for my internal team. And open sit just meant I'm going to hold a 30-minute meditation practice. If you want to come on in. It's voluntary. If you don't, no love lost. There's nothing held against you. This is a really personal journey.
They would do that on work time. Like they could just come in and be like, all right, well, that's a nice 30-minute break, and that doesn't cost me anything. So even if they did it for maybe not the best reason, they're going to get the nutrients that come with that regardless.
Oh, I love that.
Is that what you were thinking?
Can I use that sometime?
You can use that anytime.
Yeah, I want to use that. They do get the nutrients that come with
no matter what.
And you're right. I think some people came out of the curiosity of, man, I hear about meditation. I've been wanting to start that. I don't know how. I'll come and put my ear in on that. And some people were like, half hour off them. I'm in.
Yeah.
So it was a combination. You're absolutely right about that. And we probably had, of the people who were local physically in our offices at the time, about 70% of our staff show up for that on a regular basis, and the majority of them were returning every time we had an open sit that they could.
Awesome.
So if I had 2 a week, they would be in 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And also on the other side of it, Dan, is people who didn't want to. Like, there were a handful that just flat out, that's a hard no for me. That's a no thank you. Never walked in once.
Yeah.
And I know just from my own path what a personal journey that is. So, whenever somebody says thank you but no thank you, I understand.
Yeah. One of the things I thought, just picking up as you're referencing practice.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about, like, when I started doing martial arts, it's my martial arts practice.
Yeah.
But with a lot of other things, like when you go to the normal gym, they don't call it practice.
Oh, they call it, it's a workout.
They don't call CrossFit practice.
Yeah.
And I love CrossFit. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I think you could say there was a yoga practice, there's a martial arts practice, there's a meditation practice.
Yes.
And I think that word does for me, and this is making this about me for a second, is that's what martial arts is you just practicing.
Yeah.
So we have these certain things that Sensei taught us. One of them is practice exactly the way you want to perform. So you don't do that on the first day.
Yeah.
You do that over the course of, now for you, X amount of years. For me, I know my meditation practice links directly to the first day that my sensei told me about to meditate. Like, I didn't know I was going to get that when I walked into martial arts class.
Yeah.
And before we started the very first martial arts class, he said, all right, sit in attention, spine straight, nowhere more important to be, nothing more important than needs to be done. Focus on the breath, the inhalation, the exchange, the exhalation. Should the mind wander, which it will, just simply bring it back to the breath. So I can remember the first times, like, you'd hear a noise, you're thinking about the noise, you'd smell a smell. I smell that, that smells like my grandma's pie. Now I'm all of a sudden in my grandma's kitchen thinking about eating a piece of pie, and then I realize I'm way over here. I just come back, and that's what meditation is. Just coming back. And I think people really make that, they hear that word and it means something way bigger, like way more, like not the opposite of what it should make them feel, right? Meditation is such a wonderful thing, but to think you're going to be any better at that on the first day than you would be at CrossFit or martial arts or running. Do you have any experience with that? Or, like, how would you draw that for those people that have heard about it, think about it, but to just say, hey, you should really try it?
So good.
Because it's hard.
I want to use all that for myself one day. Okay, that was that's exactly the practice. And that scenario that you just described with the smelling of the pie, and if you sit down and you give yourself 30 minutes, you might actually be thinking somewhere else for 28 and a half of them. And that minute and a half where you're actually connected back to your breath could be in seconds here and 8 seconds there and 4 seconds there, combined up to a minute and a half. That can be the beginning of a meditation practice, and it's super normal. Actually, I love what we're on right now, because the reason that I opened my studio is to make these, to be able to make sure that we share, to the extent that I can, how practical and accessible a meditation practice actually is for everyone. There's nobody exempt from this. We carry it with us wherever we go.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. That's the beauty of your question right now, is that's the whole point of the studio. Yeah.
That's great, because there's oftentimes, so I have a meditation bench in my office, and it's not there because I need a meditation bench to meditate, because I actually almost never use a meditation bench to meditate, but it's there to remind me that I can meditate if I need to in the middle of the day. And now, after 15 years of meditating, it doesn't take me as long as it used to take me to get to that place, that like comfort level place. And so I would call that, I've explained it as that reset button. I mean, everybody remembers that commercial. I think it's Staples where they have the easy button. I think of the reset button because it literally 90 seconds sometimes. I mean, sometimes it takes a while, but sometimes it's 90 seconds or close to that. And I'm like, it's kind of crazy. It's like in the NASCAR when they rip off a layer of the windshield, like have all these bugs smacked on it, and then they you rip it off, and you're like, oh wait, you just got rid of like 42 bugs in like 90 seconds. Like, how did you do that? And this is the only thing that I know of to be able to do it.
Such a fun analogy. Isn't that the truth? I'll tell you what, the practice that I just did at the start to say, hey, can I check in and name that? To be able to actually like put my feet on the ground and drop my awareness in there so that I can get myself out of my head into my body, and so that I could self-regulate, just to be able to burn through that first 60 seconds of like video stuff. I would have never been able to do that 15 years ago in short order. You know, I'd be hiving right now. Like there would be like red physical hives coming up my neck, and I had to speak for work for years before I ever had a practice. And I look back on that and I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I put myself through it, number one. And again, number two, why didn't anyone teach me? Right. Like, why didn't anybody give me the goods, before whatever crazy age it was that I got it? And, what you're sharing right now reminds me of, I have a friend near and dear. I think the world of him. And he competes in his athletic field professionally, in Open Pro. And he competes regularly. And I saw him a few weeks ago, and he had just gotten back from a competition, and I said, how'd it go? And he said, I had so much anxiety before and on the floor, I couldn't get out of it to actually do well. And I said, okay. And then he described it, and he goes, and I'm going to have to figure something out. That's part of it, man. That's part of it. This idea that we always have to figure it all out in order for us to have peace, or that I need you to be kind to me in order for me to be happy, or that I need the world to be straight and in order to have some sense of well-being. And so we talked, and he and I had talked before about meditation, and he's not a buy-in guy. And so I leave it be. I leave that be. And I brought it up, and I just said, listen, I know that this is not your jam, but just for the purpose of what we're talking about, to the extent that you're willing to consider it, and I just said, what about just a short grounding practice? When you feel yourself going there, you can actually self-regulate. You can regulate your body. You can regulate your emotions, and you can kind of get an order for that piece of it. And pushed back. And I just said, I understand. No problem. Not for you. And I did get into a little bit of the science. I got into what's going on in the brain, like what's going on in the prefrontal cortex when we're under stress, and our executive function goes offline, our decision-making goes offline, emotion regulation's definitely offline. And I did share some of because I know science speaks to him. Like many of us, right? I mean, that's what I love about secular mindfulness. I mean, it talks to so many of us. But I got into a little bit of that, and I said, I don't mean adopt it as a practice, but even to be able to regulate your body before you're going to do what you do, so that you can be what you know you can be when you go out to do it. Right. And so fast forward, I see him again just yesterday, and he said, and they had competed, and I said, how did it go? And he said, we had a blast. I said, good for you, and we continued, and he circles back like a half an hour later. He goes, I have to tell you, I did a couple of your practices and they worked. I said, well, now why on earth? I, of course, had to be a little bit of a smart ass, like, why on earth would you do that? Right. And he said, because, the allowing an emotion, one of the things that we had talked about was allowing an emotion to actually make its way through your system, to like metabolize through your system on purpose, and then to regulate as it does. So like being aware of anxiety, like I can be in anxiety and still sit and be aware of it. And watch the qualities of it move through my body, like drop into my body and feel what that feels like. And then over time, what we realize is that we're able to be with this much broader range of experiences than we ever thought we could be. And so he said, it made sense. It made sense to me what you said, and I tried it and it worked. And so I'm not here to convince people who don't necessarily have an interest or buy in, but I am here to say, for those of you that think there is a better way of being with the world, of being in relationships, of being in how you relate to yourself, like noticing our own narrative, right?
Yeah.
There are practices that are super, super easy. You know, it's not difficult, it's just different than what we were taught to do. So it's not that it's hard to do it, it's just different. And my goal is to make that really tangible, really practical, really accessible for people.
Well, I think everybody's got a different end in mind, but the way it begins is probably everybody's got a different story for how it begins. But I think you're going to have a lot of people that have a similar story when they have that front door ability to come through the front door, instead of like, I signed up for martial arts and got meditation. You know, I signed up for martial arts and got all these friends. I signed up for martial arts and feel like when I walked in, I got this higher quality of people. Like you're going to have the higher quality of people. Like you're going to have like people that are going through this experience, especially on the front end, kind of together. And I think that's going to be really neat. And I think there's so many shortfalls in our system, our processes that for how we groom our young people. You know, they have no, like they're very aware of where the comma goes, and they're not very aware of where they can go when they have a stressful day. They don't feel like they don't understand money. There's all these other areas that they're falling short in, which is where people like us need to step up and introduce and groom them and train them so that this can be another tool in their satchel, kind of. Because I think that's one of the things that the COVID stuff really brought out, is like how fragile we are as humans, you know, not just in the physical form, but all of the mental problems, the mental struggles that people have had with the isolation and different, and the fear and all the stuff. I mean, it's very, very, very stressful. And it's hard to tell where some of that comes from, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot you can find a lot if you look around for, you know, what to be stressed about, for sure. And I think, Dan, particularly, like, I am adoring of these 20 to 30-year-old people in our world. You know, I think that they are so willing to go, whoa, that feels like shit. What is that? And I don't know, I don't want to broad brush too much, but like our era, different. We would like either party through it, or we would just grind through it, or grind through it. No pain, no gain. Who the hell said that?
I don't know.
Like that whole mentality, we were raised with that mentality, and we never questioned it. We never once said, well, wait, that doesn't seem right, you know. And again, I do believe that we are intended for joy. I believe that wholeheartedly. And so examining like what's going on when I'm not sitting in my joy, like why? And to be able to even be with that experience. And really the practice itself is training our ability to be aware, like attentional awareness on purpose, and like right now, what's going on right now. And then the practice is to self-regulate those two things. And it can take you down a secular path, or it can take you down a spiritual path. There are so many types of meditation, we know this, but really when you can kind of narrow it down to just a couple simple things, it's not so daunting to say, I want to start a practice, or maybe I'll try 5 minutes.
Well, I think what you did at the beginning of this makes it not daunting. Like, I don't know if everybody caught it, if you've been watching all along, but you barely noticed that you took any time to do anything. And that was a form of meditation. It was like it happened on camera. We didn't really stop anything. We just kind of like okay, I feel my feet and like, okay, I'm here.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, that's not the type of meditation I'm used to, but obviously that's something that you're used to. And there's just, okay, so this is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Meditation we can use it this way, we can use it this way. It can be a saw. It can be but it's got all these different facets and everybody's going to use it a little different.
Yes.
Like I've had a struggle, which my friends make immense fun of me for, but I had a couple panic attacks when I was doing triathlons. And since then I have a struggle with bridges. If I'm driving, going over bridges that I can't see the other side of. Mm-hmm. So like flat bridges, no problem. Bridges I can't see the other side.
That's
it's like insane.
This is new.
And for a person, it's 7 years old.
Okay.
And it's from the last triathlon that I freaked out at.
Okay.
I haven't done another triathlon since then. I've had 2 of those panic attacks. But it changes the way you live. And for somebody that's as strong as me, as all the things I am, that I feel about myself, to have this kryptonite.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. So sometimes I'll be in a great place and I'll drive over bridges and I'll be just fine. And other times it's like a real pep talk. Like you're like focusing on your breath, like slowing it down, 7 seconds out, hold 7, all the different things. And it happens to all of us. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people would look at you and hear you talk about it and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm just not like her.
Like how you have a meditation practice. How dare you be human?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so, but she's way up here, I'm way down here. Yeah. And I think about, we used to have this little group that got together. Yeah. We called it the book club, I think.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of us together. Yeah. And one of the times we decided we would meditate.
Yeah.
And I think we meditated for like, I don't know, 2 minutes, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And I remember someone in the room saying, I can't meditate. I'll never meditate. Yeah. And 5 minutes later, we're like, well, you meditate. Oh, well, I didn't really. No, you did.
Right. I remember this. And she went in this litany of things that she was thinking about. And at the same time, it was a guided meditation. And so the invitation to come back to the breath was there. And when you're in a guided meditation, being invited to come back to your breath, you're going to come back to your breath.
Right.
And that's exactly what meditation is. You're putting in the reps. Your attention is going to wander. We're human.
Yep.
If you sit down and think that it's not, then there's no way you're ever going to find yourself, quote, successful in your own mind at that. If you sit down for a practice on purpose and you follow some of the basic instructions or invitations that somebody guiding you has, assuming that the person guiding you has some experience themselves, then you've meditated. Mm-hmm. Like you said earlier, that was a form of meditation for me. And I have meditations like that sprinkled throughout now that's not my formal seated contemplative practice.
Sure.
But that was a grounding practice. That was a meditation practice. I did it with my eyes closed. I did it with other eyes on me. I didn't have to get like in a white robe in a corner on a mountain,
Right.
And I was still able to actually regulate my nervous system so that I could carry on, because I want to carry on.
Right.
Say yes. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
So cool.
And it doesn't, I think that you become more, what's the best way to say it, Dan? It doesn't mean you're not going to make errors or you're not going to fuck up once in a while.
Yeah.
It does mean that when you do blow it, you can identify that more easily for yourself, with yourself. Now, I don't want to go down a spiritual path, but like you can atone, if you will. Mm-hmm. Like for me, when I know I've blown it, and we still blow it, right?
Yeah,
we're a lot more mindful in what we do. That present moment awareness allows us, when we get to a point where we're about to either say something that we would regret or do something that we would regret, the awareness practice helps us stop. And the point of empowerment isn't not going forward with that shitty thing to say or not going forward with that action that you might regret. The point of empowerment is, I know I'm right here in this moment. Mm-hmm. Do I want to continue? Or do I want to stop and regulate and do something different or consider it different? That's our freedom. That is the place where we find our freedom, is when we're aware of what we're about to do next on purpose. And sometimes you might still just say that thing that you just have to say, like, got to give this to you, you know?
Yeah.
Or you might rethink that and examine more closely, why do I feel that? And then find something that might come from a little more integrity to say, and still have that hard conversation.
Yeah.
But you keep your footing a little bit more too. Mm-hmm. But you'll still blow it once in a while.
Sure.
We're still super, human here, doing this whole experience.
Yeah.
And you can just name it better, when you do for yourself. You're willing to examine that more closely. You're willing to sit with shame and go, okay, this is where I blew it. And you know what you notice is the narrative in your mind when you've done something shitty, you usually want to start defending it in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, Dan was a dick and he didn't call me back anyway. You know, like all those things that we want to build this case against someone else to justify why we did that crappy thing when in real life we did a crappy thing. Mm-hmm. You know, and so to be able to stay in your own lane and then sit with the experience of feeling regretful, feeling shame, feeling doubt, feeling fear, all those things that the human experience actually entails, and we spend so much time trying to avoid it, trying to avoid all of those things. Like I said earlier, we just begin to have this much broader range of experiences that we can actually be with skillfully, and then make our next best decision from that, instead of grievances and blame and doubt and all that garbage that we contend with every day.
So if we go back, like we're kind of going back and forward, like, so the Wixey Center for Wellness has, I'm assuming, like it seems as though there's several versions of meditation.
Yeah.
So so what would somebody expect? Like, what are the options, and what does it feel like, and the vibe? And I'm imagining the vibe, but I'm wondering like what this looks like, because truthfully, my meditation experience is very like two-dimensional. Like I've got two different versions of it for me. So I'm imagining you having this like arsenal of different tools and how you introduce people to meditation. Mm-hmm. Could you speak to what's available at the center and kind of how those classes fit together and what they look like, and the process eventually of somebody saying, yeah, I watched that. It looked pretty good. I've actually been thinking about that. Now I have a place I could actually go where somebody can teach me how to do this.
Yes, thank you. So we just had our open house about a week and a half ago. We've been providing classes and services for about a month and a half.
Okay.
And right now the different classes and series that we have going are an intro to meditation. So it's for that person who has either never meditated or is trying to really get committed into a regular practice or build upon their own practice. We have yoga for arthritis and other inflammatory response.
That's
so
great.
There's a meditative experience at the front and at the end, and actually throughout the whole thing, but really, a little more formal at the beginning and the end. We have sound baths, which,
I'm not familiar with this. I have no idea. Like, okay, now...
I always really want to do her justice on this too. So sound baths with Rebecca Black. Rebecca Black is a Reiki master, and she works with tuning forks, crystal bowls, and sound to balance our energy centers. So she's working with frequency.
Okay.
This is all measurable, so it's all legit. But it's an incredible experience, and it's probably, in terms of what we have at the studio right now, the least amount of work that you'd have to do coming in, right? Like yoga, you're going to do some stuff. You're going to do some things, and intro to meditation, I'm going to call on you to do some things. But sound bath, you would be invited in. Rebecca's going to describe what she's doing, why she's doing it, how and why it works. She's going to invite you to set an intention, and really kind of broad intentions, like I want to be less judgmental. I want to, my last sound bath I was in, I know my intention, and it was to just let go of any barriers that aren't true, like the things in my own belief systems that I know that aren't true, but I still let them keep me from being my best. Like I want that shit gone. So set an intention, and then she will invite us to let our eyes close, and then we can keep them open or let them close. She'll invite us to either lie down or sit down. So it's 50-50 in the classes that I've been to so far. Some people want to sit because they're more, their hips and they're more comfortable seated, and some people are lying down with cushions underneath their knees. And she plays crystal bowls, and this is where I wish I had her here right now to talk about the sounds they make and what kind of notes they're in. But Dan, she could be playing crystal bowls like right here where the guys are. And it sounds like she's at that stop sign across the street. Like, where the hell did Rebecca go? And at the end of every one, I'm like, Rebecca, you were still sitting with the bulls, right? Because I don't know what's going on.
It's
and
wild.
really, it's something that integrates with your system for a few days after that too. So she encourages you to drink lots of water, take good care, allow that to integrate. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we had sound baths every Wednesday in June. She's going to take the first Wednesday in July off, and she's back to every Wednesday thereafter in July.
Very cool.
Yeah, we have conscious dance.
Okay.
I know. So conscious dance is so cool and it always makes me a little nervous. I always get that high pitch when I talk about it at first because it makes me nervous. I participate in everything at the studio. So I'm in all of these. And conscious dance with Joni Johnson is awesome. I'm a dancer. I train for dance.
Okay.
But this is not what we're doing in like a choreography or a Latin dance or anything like that. This is literally the opposite. This is let your eyes close. We're going to play rhythm. And we're going to invite you to move your body.
Wow.
It's wild, Dan. Oh, my goodness. Come to it sometime. I would love
to do that. That's way outside of my range, though. I can tell you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Super cool. It's super cool. And then we start Mindfulness for Youth in July, getting young people a space to come in and begin their own secular practices. Anytime we're working with youth, it's purely secular.
Okay.
My intro to meditation is purely secular, too.
Yeah.
But really for youth, that's, super important.
So when you say youth, like how old might what age would you recommend the introduction to meditation formally in this way, in this fashion?
Good question. Research says as early as 4 and 5. Now, obviously, I'm gonna digress for just a second. So here's what we know about humans and brain development. Our brain is not fully developed to self-regulate on our own until early to mid-20s. Holy shit, right? Early to mid-20s. Think of that.
That explains a lot of things.
Doesn't it? And so what happens is we actually attune to the adult in the room. Our youth will attune to the adult in the room. This is why caregivers' health is so important. This is why I dig working with adults, because the kids are cool. We're messy. Mm-hmm. And when kids are literally regulating from where we are, so if they, stub their toe, get hurt, cry, tantrum, they're going to need a stable adult to regulate to fully.
Right.
Okay. So they say for like the curriculum, as early as 5, but babies with a regulated adult is still, like, I am a big proponent of meditate with your baby. Meditate with your baby in your belly, meditate when that baby comes out of your belly, really do something to regulate your system on the regular so that baby is getting that attunement. And that's where that healthy development actually comes from. So I'm not here to blame anyone for anything and all that, right? Because you go there, right? I think, man, I was a mess before I started my practice.
Right.
I had 2 kids that were 4 and 8 at that point before I even started to meditate.
Right.
So you spend a little time going, holy cow. So to answer the question as early as, 4, 5, 6, and our classes will start at 8 and 9 right now. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yep.
Good. So if somebody wanted to find you, like you're in Maumee.
We're in Maumee.
We're at Maumee. And where can they find you if they're like Googling this? How do they not stumble into you, but deliberately find you? Okay.
So our physical location is in Maumee, and we're located, this is where Le Petit Gourmet gets the plug, because we're located right in those in the commercial space around Le Petit Gourmet. And if you don't know where that is off of Briarfield, which is off of Salisbury Dussel Road. So it's a Maumee location. All of our classes are found on our booking site, which is wixeycenter.com.
Awesome.
And the website is not yet done. So now I might have the red itch, right? Because the website can take me there every time. But all of the offerings, all of the classes
that we take. But they can find it at wixeycenter.com.
Yes.
So that's the important thing that they can find. Because this is, as a new business, to be able to, being able to go find the times and the places and that stuff is the most important thing. And being able to introduce more of our people. Because we have some of the same people. We share some people that we're close friends with.
We do.
And so it's pretty neat to hear this pivot in your life and career and path.
Thank you. Yeah, I sold that business I mentioned a little while ago. I sold that business in November of 2020. I took just a little bit of time off to make sure I knew what I wanted to do next. I knew it was to do this work. I also work with schools and business organizations for employee wellness. So I'm also out in the field for that work. So what we've talked about today is more studio work and meditation itself, which I think is the important conversation. But I sold that, and it was 10 years. It was great. It was a great business, and I'm having fun. It's different than the traditional type of industry that we come from, and different type of work.
Well, I think when you have the ability, like sometimes when we're running a business, you get caught up in the business part of the business, and then this is a nice business that brings you back to like day to day, seeing you help people. And I feel like that about my job. Like it's kind of hard because sometimes I'm running the business and other times I'm like in the trenches kind of with people. But you realize how valuable when something happens in their life that's not on the normal path. You realize like this is when, okay, this is happening. This is when people, it's really good that they have a meditation practice. It's really good that they have put these other things in place. So it's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
I appreciate your time this morning.
Cool.
Sorry, I did not give you the full heads up on the like attire and how we're going to, that this is going to be in person.
I'm
and
a
it's going to be,
girl, Dan. I got to keep something
really humid outside. But you're beautiful as always.
You're
and awesome. A great conversation.
Thank you.
So I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
So awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Cheers.
Dan DeVerna offers products and services using the following business names: Creative Financial Partners, Insurance and Financial Services, Ameritas Investment Company, LLC, AIC, member FINRA, SIPC, Security Investments, Ameritas Advisor Services, AAS Investment Advisory Services. AIC and AAS are not affiliated with Creative Financial Partners. Products and services are limited to residents of states where the representative is registered. This is not an offer of securities in any jurisdiction, nor is it specifically directed to a resident of any jurisdiction. As with any security request and prospectus from a representative, read it carefully before you invest or send money. A representative will contact you to provide requested information. Representatives of AIC and AAS do not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney regarding the situation.
Thanks for watching.